Another week down, another Super Rugby Pacific round in the bag. It was a hell of a round as it has been for the last four, but this week there were some shifters and movers and some shakers, and they've actually made a big difference on the table. And we're going to go through all of that, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it in the comments below. But give me what you think about round five, please. I'll join you down there in the comments. Likewise, if you do get any value from the channel, if you feel like you're learning something, or you feel like you're just getting a good dose of Super Rugby Pacific review, preview, news action, then please give me a subscribe. It really helps me spread the word of rugby and continue to do these videos. No marketing team, it's just me doing these videos, one-man team, so I'd appreciate any support that you can give me. So like and subscribe, that'd be great. And let's just head on straight into the video. So today we are going to go through the power rankings as well as the review preview, but that'll be at the end that we have a look, and we'll just speed through the games really quickly. So the first game of the weekend was the Highlanders against the Hurricanes. Now this was just more of a case of the Highlanders unable to actually seal and complete their opportunities. They had countless opportunities to score. They had good pressure, and throughout the game, they just let those moments slip through their fingers. I think this was something that was really emulated by the end of the game, where the Hurricanes kept out the Highlanders and repelled them for 10 minutes straight almost. It was crazy. I think Duplessis Karifi, the co-captain of the Hurricanes, made 100 contacts. That's what his mouth guard read in the last stanza, like in the last 10 minutes, something like that, which is a phenomenal effort. Lucky they have a bye this week, because I would not want to be in their bodies, for that recovery run. Really, really good effort by the Hurricanes. They were desperate for the win, and they showed why. The Highlanders probably took a bit of a step back this week, showing that they didn't know how to clutch and close out the dying stages of being just behind in those minutes. Sam Gilbert going for a drop goal unprepared from 40 meters out after being within 2 meters of the try line and then being held up to go for a line dropout. That just shows kind of a part of the game that they really need to work on if they want to be serious about being finals contenders, because there's going to be way bigger games with more pressure than that coming down the pine. Second game on Friday was the Brumbies hosting the Drua. This was a classy performance from the Brumbies outfit, who did welcome back Noah Lolesio. It wasn't a faultless game by the incumbent Wallabies number 10, but his directional play, taking charge and owning his team around the pitch, definitely is there for all to see. Declan Meredith came on very late in the piece, but he did a very good job as well. They probably could have shared those minutes a bit longer, but I think Stephen Larkham was pretty keen to get Noah on there for a good solid minute. But I think the real player of the evening was Len Ikitau. He was on fire. He really showed why he is often discussed in the world-class conversations around outside centers in the world. He easily outplayed another really great player on his day, Issafo Massi, at outside center, but that really wasn't any sort of a competition. He took that easily. Brumbies were just simply too clinical and too good at doing their basics well, their set piece, and then when they pulled the Fijian Drua defense together, they definitely were able to accordion and stretch them out, and then that's when they were able to find the gap. So that was really impressive from the Brumbies. They did let in a few points there, which probably could have helped not to leak those points. A couple of soft moments, but overall, really dominant performance. 36-21, it could have been more. Brumbies take another step closer towards being a more established strength and a more established team in the competition. They still have to welcome back Tai Tuatulima in the back row, and then they also have Rob Valentini as well. So they definitely have space and room enough to grow to be able to go to another level. Now, the first game on the Saturday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. kickoff here in the east coast of Australia. That was the Crusaders absolutely thumping the Western Force in what looked like a really tight contest in the first half. It was 20-18, I believe, and then this score got really ugly in the second half. Sever Ruiz banked a hat-trick, and he's really close to breaking the all-time try-scoring record. I forget who it's being held by at the minute, but that's definitely getting up there. And then also you have, I think it's TJ Perinara is on 63, so is Julian Sevilla or something like that. So I think Sevilla is up there. And then you've got Macca Springer the very, very young player on the wing. Believe it's his starting debut, who scored 5 tries in the outing, and that equals the late Sean Wainui from the Chiefs. His tremendous record of 5 tries in a game. So congratulations to young Macca Springer, who was pretty humble about it all in the post-match conference. But also just a quick shout out to Sean Wainui, who was a great player in his own right when he was with us. So overall, the Force stuck with them really well. Physicality was really good. It just looked like they were running out of experienced players to do so, and Simon Cron was very deliberate about the way that he went about picking his side, resting a lot of Wallabies players, giving some players off. Dylan Peach obviously off with an injury. Ben Donaldson, Carlo Designo, Nick White, they were off for Wallabies rest. That was just a decision that he made. It's too soon to say whether it was the right or the wrong play, but obviously that result was not great for the overall look of the side of where they're at, and we'll get into that in the power rankings in a second. But Crusaders going from strength to strength under Rob Penny. Rob Penny in the post-match conference did say that he wasn't particularly happy with the fact that they're having to rely on some key All Blacks and key players to be able to do the miracle stuff, as opposed to being able to do really well in the detail and drill down and to nail those moments. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to improve, because they definitely have that in them. But nevertheless, it was something that I noticed throughout the game, that it was the star-studded talent that really brought forward that score. The couple of late consolation tries or tries that went against the run and play for the Western Force there. So that score probably looks a little bit better than it could have been. Nevertheless, they did score 33 points against the Crusaders at home, which is nothing to be snorted at or should be laughed at. That's really impressive from them. So even though they sent over a side heavily light on experience, rather, it was a decent showing for different reasons, but nevertheless wasn't a great outcome. 55 points is far too many to be able to concede. Then the second game on the Saturday, that was a 5 o'clock kickoff here on the eastern coast of Australia. Then you have got the Chiefs beating the Blues by 1 singular point. And I posted this on X, and if you don't follow me there, please go ahead and follow me there. I do post rugby content daily, if not multiple times a day. What other competition is there that a top side that is in their own caliber of league at the moment beating the bottom placed side, the Blues at the time, by 1 point? When does that ever happen? It was a hell of a contest. They looked great in their Chiefs, the Black Panther jerseys for their superhero jerseys for kids round. That was round 5. That's what it was all about. Sorry to shout out to that. And then you've also had the Blues in their Spider-Man gear, and they did that Peter Parker three Spider-Man meme. Great effort and great job by the Blues media management unit there. But nevertheless, the spider senses weren't tingling strong enough with the Blues to be able to get over the Chiefs for life, aka the Black Panthers. And then also it was a little bit of a switcheroo or a bit of a change for the side, obviously, without Beauden Barrett in the side at all due to hand injury, or wrist injury rather. Stephen Perifetta came back and played a really good game, and then I apologize to the inside setter that had a debut. I believe I pronounced his name wrong in the preview video. His name's Javi Taili, and that looks at a quick glance, it looks like Talia, so apologies, but he played really well. Only just missed a kick at the end to be able to take the win from the Chiefs. So that's a lot of weight to put on a young man's shoulders. But nevertheless, it was a really, really good game. Both sides will be bashed up, and then they're going to have to go straight into recovery because they've got a couple of hard weeks coming up still. Then the final game of the round was the Waratahs playing against the Reds up at Suncorp for the rugby state of origin rather. It was a really spicy contest leading up to the kickoff whistle, and even the first 20 minutes there was big hits. Andrew Kellaway laying out Harry Wilson, Tristan Riley laying out both Tom Liner and Tim Ryan, the junkyard dog. It was looking like it was set for a really, really spicy and good game of rugby until that yellow card to Andrew Kellaway for his tip tackle on Harry Wilson. How often does a fullback absolutely annihilate a big ball running number 8? But nevertheless, he got given a yellow card. It wasn't upgraded. I personally felt that it didn't quite fit the occasion. It looked like a momentum thing, and I get that you have to penalize that because he did go over the horizontal. Nevertheless, sport is a spectacle, it's entertainment, and something like that was great for that factor. Thankfully, Harry Wilson did not injure his neck or shoulder because that's not what we want at all. The victory, because they absolutely thumped them. Okay, they absolutely thumped them 35-15. A little bit of a blemish on this win was the fact that you saw Fraser McRae, the man who just re-signed with Rugby Australia and the Reds through to 2028, literally the day before on Friday, walking around with a sling on his arm due to a shoulder injury, what appeared after he scored that really nice try where he dummied and sold that to Andrew Kellaway midway through the first half, I think it was. Sorry, second half. So that was a bit of a shame to watch. Les Kiss isn't sure if it's bad or not. He doesn't believe so, but we'll wait to watch and see what he says about that. So now I think we'll get straight into the power rankings. So let's go. So here you've got the table on one side and you've got the power rankings on the other. And I've got T1 straight down to T4. And the reason why and how I've done this is because I've accounted for where the teams have played all their games, how much their point differential is looking at, and what their track record is looking at throughout the entire thing, as well as their injury rosters. And all of that has kind of been summarized into this power ranking. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know, please, in the comments below what you think about these power rankings. Where do you see teams actually belonging? Do you think teams should be higher? Do you think they should be lower? So in tier 1 by himself, you've got the Chiefs. The way that they have dominated really powerful sides, really traditionally strong sides in the early parts of this competition means they are in a tier of their own. I don't see one of the Australian sides necessarily putting up a fight. The Brumbies, who, as you can see, I've deemed the strongest of the Australian sides, lost to them pretty comprehensively. Some people will say that it was a close defeat. I think that it was a pretty comprehensive defeat, although obviously both teams will continue to get better, and I think the Brumbies more so now that they're welcoming back the likes of Nola Lacio and then Rob Valentini in the weeks to come. Nevertheless, the Chiefs are in a tier of their own. The way that they've been able to control games, grind out games, and then to be able to really power over teams and be able to expose gaps all over sides, whether it's through the middle or around the wing. Really, really hugely impressive, and that's why they are in a tier all by themselves. It's also important to note that they are sitting on a point differential of plus 48. So again, no other side is even close to them. The Crusaders, who I've listed as number 3 on the power rankings and are number 2 on the ladder, have a points differential of 29. And so that shows you the disparity of where this point differential gauge or metric has the sides looking at the moment. Then if we move on in the tier 2, you've got 3 sides. You've got the Brumbies, Crusaders, and the Blues. From an Australian perspective, for an Australian side to go over to Eden Park and beat them there without their first pick fly half, without their first pick number 6, and an integral player like Rob Valentini, as well as other recruits like Tai Toa Talima, it's extremely impressive, and it shows that they do have another gear to go to when they play their game to their very best. So the Brumbies, they sit there in second because they've had the toughest run out of all the Australian sides, and they've still managed to come out with 3 wins and 2 losses. No, sorry, 3 wins and 2 losses. That's correct, out of their 5 games. So it is really impressive from them, and their run of games is only going to get easier from a perspective of the fact they've had such a difficult start. They played the Chiefs at home, and then they played the Blues at home, lost against the Chiefs, won against the Blues. Being able to do that coming off a loss to the the Force round 2, and then going over to win at the Drua, I think that speaks to the way that they're able to manage their squad and the depth and the quality that they have there. The Crusaders, likewise, they've just been really impressive in the way they've gone about their business, continually improving, and then being able to show that really dominant game and put the foot on the throat against the Western Force. Although the Western Force aren't the benchmark, they are nevertheless a really impressive outfit. To be able to keep it really tight in that game, like I said, 20-18, and then I think that's just the quality of the Crusaders winning out over that, and that's where that gap and that's where that difference lies. Then you've got the Blues sitting there in fourth, and I know that everyone will be looking at where they sit on the table. They sit in ninth on the table, and then they've won 1 game out of 5, losing 4, but their points differential is only minus 17, having to lost to all those games. Other teams who have done the same are not nowhere near as do not have anywhere near have as good points differential, and likewise, they have had the toughest run of any side. That's Fijian, Drua, Moana, Aussie, Kiwi sides, any side, this is the hardest and most difficult opening stanza for a team. So to be sitting where they are with such a small points differential against having to play the Chiefs twice, that's why the Blues have retained their spot at fourth, and because they are still a very dangerous side with a massive injury list. And as the season builds and as they continue to build their cohesion, I can only see them getting better and becoming more and more into the competition. So with the retrospective things taken into account, fourth seems like a pretty decent spot for them. Next comes in Tier 3, the Highlanders and the Reds. Both sides have had equally easy runs in who they've played. The most difficult game for the Reds was playing the Crusaders in Christchurch. They got thumped, and the most difficult game for the Highlanders, you'd have to say, is playing the Blues in Dunedin and winning that game. So that's why the Highlanders trump the Reds there. Their seasons and opposition are only going to get tougher in the weeks to come. So it'll be really interesting to see how we go with this movement, because this is a fluid chart. It will move and it will change. But I think that from what's happened and looking at their injury rosters as well as who they've played where, that is a fair reflection of where the Reds and the Highlanders sit. Then you go down to the T4. You've got the Hurricanes, Moana, Waratahs, Drua, and the Force. Let's start first up top with the Hurricanes. They're sitting at 7th, level with where they're sitting at on the table. And that's just because they just haven't been particularly impressive, whether it's been their wins against the Drua and the Highlanders last night, or it's been their losses. They've just shown a tendency to be impatient or unable to actually close out those really tight moments. And even when they have done so to the win, it has been under shaky circumstances. Like last night, winning against the Highlanders, that was more about an inability for the Highlanders to actually clinch and clutch up and take their opportunities, as opposed to the Hurricanes doing anything marvelous and just outright blowing them out of the water. So it will be interesting to see when the Hurricanes head over to Australia and vice versa, when they welcome the Australian sides, to see who's playing where. But overall, I think the Hurricanes are sitting in a spot where they actually show their potential, but where they are showing what they actually have done. And what they have done is that they've only won 2 out of 5 games with a minus 15 points differential. So that's where they're sitting. Next is Moana, and they are bottom on the ladder, but they only have a 1 better points differential score than the Hurricanes, and they actually did beat the Hurricanes a couple of weeks ago, and they're sitting on minus 14 points differential. And I think that the way that Tana Umaga has this side playing, it's really impressive to see what they can do when they're changing their key position. They're changing at halfback. They're making changes number 10 with Pellegrini for Jackson Garden Bishop. It's really impressive to see that they're not just relying on players like Artie Sevilla, who is playing really well for them, but they're not just relying on players like Artie Sevilla to actually be able to go and win these games for them, because against that Hurricane side and against the Highlanders, they really show that they can play without those players. So, huge boost for them. Tano Umaga is playing a really good game with those guys. Hugely impressive. I can't wait to see how they go on down the track. But I feel like 8th is a decent indicator of where they have been and where they are heading. Likewise for the Waratahs, they've had a really easy run. The easiest run of any, of almost any Australian side or any side in the competition, actually. Having 3 home games against the Highlanders, the Fijian Drua, and the Western Force, and then heading up, having a bye in there as well, and then heading up to play the Queensland Reds. Queensland Reds was their hardest opposition. They got absolutely spanked by them last night. I don't know if the score necessarily of 35-15 reflects of how dominant the Red looked in certain parts. And the Waratahs have only just clinched those 2 first games that they had against the Highlanders and the Drua in the dying stages. Yes, they pumped the Force last week, but that was more of an indication of the Force and their inability to play their game and play how they should be up to the standard that's necessary, as opposed to the Waratahs just blowing them out of the water. Still too forward dominated, not having enough variation in attack, and then also simply not having enough players getting on the ball to slow other team's ball down, because we saw that the Reds were able to get a run on, not by throwing the dumb flick passes or the Hail Marys, just by simply going through the phases, stacking up, good connection in the pick and drives, and then we're able to get over the gain line. And that maul, Jesus Christ, that 20-meter maul or something that just drove over and scored that try for Richie Asiata was, yeah, you wouldn't want to be in the pack under Dan McKellar on Monday morning for that review, that's for sure. Everything, all this can change. Waratahs, Moana, Drua, Force, the Hurricanes, they can all go up. Highlanders and Reds, they can all come down, but this is how I'm seeing it at the moment. Please let me know in the comments below if you have a different opinion. Next, the Drua, they just haven't been quite impressive enough in the way that they've played and in their discipline particularly to be able to say that they should be any higher than 10th. That first loss against the Brumbies really feel like they knocked them on the head and kind of made them regress a little bit. And then the close losses to the Hurricanes and Waratahs in successive weeks just does something bad to the confidence, as we've seen it do for the Waratahs last season. So Glenn Jackson, if they can get their structures right, they have the talent and they have the caliber of players to be able to do really well, but they have to start winning their home games, and that starts over the next 4 or 5 games. Next is up the Western Force. It's not so much that they're necessarily the worst, because as I said, the difference between 11th and 7th or 11th and 5th, not a whole lot, to be honest, as we've seen with the Reds and the Western Force almost drawing there in Perth a couple of weeks ago in round 3, I believe. But nevertheless, the Western Force have just shown in the last 2 weeks that they have a tendency that if they're not playing their best side and they don't have them on there for 60 plus minutes, as well as they're not hyper focused, then they can slip off and slip out of games. So kind of disappointing against the Crusaders yesterday, although scoring 33 points, because the last score was 55-33 if I'm not mistaken. That's right. Scoring 33 points against the Crusaders is no mean feat at home. That means they leaked 33 points. Really, really impressive from the Force, but they've just got to tighten up their defense, and that comes down from being really, really dominant in the contact area, and I feel like they probably missed someone like Carlo Tizzano this weekend, to be honest, in not being able to pilfer and really disrupt that flow of that ball. Please let me know what you think. I think that's clear that T1 and T2 are almost entirely locked in. There can be movement between T3 and T4. I don't see someone going from Tier 4 all the way up to Tier 2 in the next 5 weeks. I'll do another review in round 10, but that's the way that I see it, and I do think that the biggest movers will probably be the Reds. Apart from that, I can't see any side necessarily making big moves. Potentially the Brumbies and Crusaders being part of that Tier 1, because I haven't made set numbers in any of these tiers, as you can see. That is just a feel of where the power resides amongst all the teams. But I want to hear from you guys. I'll be with you in the comment section below. Please let me know. And I'll be doing another one, like I said, after round 10. No content later in the week for a review of round 6, but I will be doing a preview for round 6 on Wednesday, so keep your eye out for that. And as always, like and subscribe. But until then,